listening to AstroDetectives, where longtime friends Scott and Sarah try to debunk
or prove
the ancient practice of astrology.
I'm Sarah Hartshorn, the astrologer.
And I'm Scott Randall, the skeptic. Each episode, I'll give Sarah 2 natal charts. One chart matches the exact moment of birth for our mystery guest, and the other is just a red herring.
I'll use astrology to detect which chart belongs to our guest. And with a little help from my underground network of AstroDetectives, this case is as good as solved.
Oh, we'll see about that. It's AstroDetectives time once again. I am your skeptic on the show. I'm here with my friend and co-host, and most importantly, for the purposes of this show, astrologer, Sarah. How's it going?
It's going great, Scott. How are you?
I am having a great Libra season, let me tell you.
Okay.
My life is in balance. I'm finding peace. I am not instigating anything unnecessary. I don't know.
No, I love that, Scott. You are picking up the vocab, and I think that is really, I commend you for doing that. And
yeah.
And you were telling me the other day that sometimes you promote our podcast in your workplace, and people, you're now going out and talking about astrology out in the world. And I thought that was a really interesting story. What did you say to your coworker?
Well, some listeners may know I promote solar panels in stores, and the sun is a very important sign in everybody's chart, and I should really start using that in my sales technique. But when I'm working with a coworker, sometimes I'll say like, "Hey, do you happen to know the time you were born? You could come on this podcast that I do." And this time, my friend said, "Yeah, I sure do." And then, of course, I have to ask, "Do you know the traits involved?" Because that'll actually kind of disqualify you. And sure enough, he knew the traits.
And he knew his big 3, right?
He knew his big 3, and he had an idea of what each of those meant, which kind of means that would skew the results if I brought him on the show, because then we ask him questions. He's like, well, even if he didn't say, he was a Libra, though. So for Libra season, that's perfect. And I was like, well, what does that mean to you? What do you associate that with? And I don't know, he gave me an answer. I told you, Sarah, that it was a little hard to untangle, but we made it fit.
Yeah, but you were telling me that, like, I forget what his answer was, but you're like, well, I thought Libras were, more like this, diplomatic and like things in balance. And I was just like blown away that you knew that. Like, that's huge. I love that.
Well, that's a huge endorsement for this show, because I've basically been learning astrology through this show. So anyone out there, if you just stick with it, episode by episode, you'll get there.
Yeah.
Just like me, an astrology master now.
I feel like you've had your first sip of Kool-Aid.
He believes it as little as ever, but I love it. It's fun. And that's where we agree. It is fun. It sort of like has a sci-fi element to me, because I'm like, let's see how we can make this match happen. Let's come up with the descriptions that make you a Libra. But is either one of them Libra today?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Perfect.
Yeah. Very topical.
All right. So we've got 2 charts today. Our guest belongs to one of those 2 charts. But you're not going to have to do it alone, Sarah.
Thank God.
As we do every week, you've got help. You've got astrology backup help. Who do you have helping you today?
Well, I have a wonderful astrologer today. She's actually one of my favorite astrologers on Instagram. Her posts are so awesome. I love them. We have a intuitive astrologer from Baltimore, Maryland, Emily Green. Welcome to AstroDetectives.
Hello.
So great. Yeah. And so your Instagram is Rebel Venus Astrology.
Yes.
And tell us kind of what you do, like these posts that, like, I think I told you one time, they remind me of like record album covers.
That's such a good compliment. Well, I try to I think that I really like to use a lot of millennial pop culture references to explain astrology. Although with the current climate, that might be evolving into something different. But I like to make astrology feel fun, serious, but also make you laugh.
Yeah, and you use the best memes, and you have great music and visuals. Like, gosh, how did she remember there was that quote in that one movie, or how did she find that? That's so fitting and so great.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, so I think everyone should follow you.
Especially millennials. So I'll hopefully get some of the references. I am the absolute oldest millennial there is. January 81.
I accept all generations.
Right.
So.
If you want to learn about millennials, there you go.
I claim Xennial, the micro generation. I'm 1979, so I'm like straddling X and millennial. I don't want to claim either one.
Well, do we have a Xennial with us today? This person is sort of in the age range that we're talking about, and then has one of two sun signs. Who are we looking at today between these two birth charts that you've been reviewing?
Okay. And just to remind everybody, you can go to AstroDetectivesPod.com and download our case files so you can see both of these charts for yourself and play along. And so today we have a Libra sun with a Capricorn moon and a Capricorn ascendant. And then we have a Leo sun with a Scorpio, a Virgo moon and a Scorpio ascendant. And so those are the two charts that we have today. And so.
And one of those will match the guest that'll join us later. Mm-hmm. But for right now, what are the main differences that you guys notice between these two charts that as we're talking to our guest, you're going to be looking for to really help distinguish which chart belongs to them?
Sure. I guess one thing that I'll be looking for is our Libra Capricorn person chart. That is an energy that is a little bit more, more focused on a little more reserved and stoic and focused on responsibility and duty, I feel like, and especially in relationships. Whereas our Leo Scorpio chart with the Virgo moon, I feel like is someone that's a lot more fiery passion. Mm-hmm. I feel like that might come across. I don't know. What about you, Emily?
I'm thinking, because I will say there's a lot of similarities and duality between the two charts, especially on the angles. But I'm going to be really focused on how this person does emotion and whether they're comfortable with it and it's like, they can reach it, it's close right off the cuff, or if it's something that is there's more boundaries around accessing emotion. That to me is like one of the main differences between the two.
And which chart would you say is which there?
So I'm the Scorpio rising is the one who I'm gonna assume has more of that emotion that's really apparent when you're talking to someone, and the more stoic energy coming from the Capricorn rising.
Okay. Yeah. I like it.
And then you guys have the opportunity to look at a survey too. Are you leaning one way or the other just based on those survey answers only? And listeners, the survey is available in the case files that Sarah mentioned earlier.
Yeah, I would say there were a couple. I mean, I definitely made notes in both columns, but I did feel like there was one thing that stuck out to me because they gave some transit dates, and they gave a transit date for when they were married, and and just sidebar, they did submit this survey to us twice. So I will include both of those in our case files.
But hopefully the marriage date didn't change, right?
they left it off the second time. They didn't even put it down. Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
So this person has a date for their marriage and they are divorced as well. However, they put a comment next to the marriage date that said, well, we had children, so we got married out of like responsibility. So that was very striking to me. And just that use of the word responsibility to me really fit with like this Capricorn moon ascendant chart. Someone who's really, and that chart also has Saturn in Leo, which sometimes I feel like has some karma around duty and responsibility. And so that was kind of making me lean in that direction. There were definitely some things that were making me look at the Leo chart, but that comment I just thought was so striking. How about you, Emily? Any?
See, I think what trips me up about that one is that both of these charts for the marriage date have transiting Saturn conjunct Venus. Mm-hmm. So both of those are really speaking to that responsibility as well. So honestly, I'm going to go more off of how the person presents and through asking questions, because I could really make an argument for both.
Sure, yeah. And I feel like a lot of times when I see them, when I get a sense of their energy, it all starts to kind of come alive a little bit more.
That's what I'm banking on.
So we'll have to do the interview after all. It's not decided based on the survey only.
I don't think.
I always love to see if it's locked up beforehand. I'll tell the guests, thanks, you're not needed. They made up their mind. I've
had the rug pulled out from under me a couple of times to know not to hang all my hope on one chart based on the survey.
Perhaps half the time the rug has been pulled out from under you.
Shut the F up.
All right, everybody. Well, stay tuned. We're going to come right back with our guest and see if they are, what are the two signs again?
Libra or Leo.
Libra or Leo. Right after this. Hey, listeners. We're not just a podcast that tests astrology. We're an independent detective agency. That means we rely on you to help us keep the show running.
Exactly. By joining AstroDetectives on Patreon, you can support our mission to finally prove astrology is real.
Or, completely debunk it.
Here we go again.
One thing we can agree on, AstroDetectives is the only place you'll find astrologers and skeptics working together, like a buddy cop movie you didn't know you needed.
And trust me, detective work takes time, gathering evidence, late night stakeouts, solving cases, especially when Mercury's retrograde.
Okay, you can't blame Mercury.
The first step is easy and free. Just follow Astro Detectives on Patreon to get access to our debrief episodes where the conversation continues after each case ends. We break down what went right and what went wrong.
And if you want to fast track your training, become a rookie detective for only $3 a month. You'll unlock exclusive bonus episodes, plus early releases and the top secret case files sent straight to your inbox.
Or for just $1 a month, we'll make you an Astro intern. No compensation per se, but hey, you'll gain valuable detective experience and that warm, fuzzy feeling knowing you're helping us keep the lights on.
So if you like what we're doing and want to support us, head over to patreon.com/astrodetectives and join the investigation today. Welcome back, everybody. We are now joined with our guest this time. It's Jason. Welcome to Astro Detectives.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate you having me on and meeting all of you lovely people. I've listened to some of the episodes and love what you do, so I'm excited to be a part of it.
I'm so glad. That's really fun to hear.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Oh, you're most welcome. You're most welcome. It's fun. It's so refreshing. I read serious books or something. It's nice to just get something that's a little fun in there, that shows up on the subscribed list. So
that's it. We're cutting that soundbite into an ad. Well, I'll start the same place we start every time, and that is, can you kind of describe what you're wearing today and if you have any tattoos?
Sure. I am wearing a Lewis Hamilton Formula One shirt. I'm a huge Lewis Hamilton fan, motorsports fan. And yes, I'm sleeved on the left arm and upper back is covered as well.
All right. And I noticed a little colorful too. It's not just like black and white.
Yeah, I couldn't do just the black and white. I had to get some color of life in there. So,
Are there any that kind of speak to you specifically that like have special meaning that you got for a specific reason?
yes, all of it really. But I don't know if what's the right camera angle. This one that's kind of hard to see. It's an insignia from a G.I. Joe character named Snake Eyes. And when I was a kid, he was my favorite, brought me a lot of comfort. I always liked ninjas and things like that. And then when I was older, I'd gone through a divorce. Money was really tight. My parents were awesome. I was overly spoiled. I had probably every G.I. Joe character. And I sold it. And at this show in which I'm selling it at, a toy show, this guy comes over. Ironically, his name is Joe, and he goes by the moniker of G.I. Joe, and he goes, I want all of your ninjas. And I go, well, those are just display. That's what I'm keeping. And he made me an offer that it was so good that it was going to give some relief financially. And, you know, my kids growing were in need of, you know, clothes, food, shelter, et cetera, that it was kind of a tough choice, but I needed to let it go. I had my time with that. So when I started my sleeve, one of my best friends is actually my tattoo artist. I said, I want that right there to really remember that. And it was a big part of personal growth for me too.
Yeah, it's like you got to keep them in a little bit of a way.
Yeah.
They're always with you. You bring your G.I. Joe everywhere.
Yeah. And my kids, I mean, they're the greatest. So, you know.
Well, we do want to get into kind of work and career. Is there a certain area where you like, if you sort of find yourself always doing certain types of jobs, or what do you feel especially good at?
Well, I'm like you all. I'm a podcaster. As a matter of fact, that's what I do for my profession. I produce 5 different podcasts, host 3 of those 5. And in addition to that, I work in addiction recovery advocacy. For a nonprofit. I'm in recovery myself for alcoholism. And so, yeah, I kind of one of those things where purpose is really aligned. You know, I went to college for film and television and worked in radio for 20 years. And my parents always gave me a hard time. Like, what are you going to do with that degree? I went, I don't know. I'll ask people if they want fries with that. You know, there wasn't a huge plan, but it's all played out in all those skills. So, yeah, I feel very, very blessed.
So when you kind of think of your role in those areas, especially well, like with the addiction recovery, is it like a counseling, or what kind of role do you play in that area? And in the podcasting too, are you producing? You mentioned hosting, but the main things that you do.
Yeah. So I do work a little bit with people in recovery. I am a certified recovery coach. So, that tends to be people that maybe have the means and they want anonymity, but they still want someone that would resemble a 12-step sponsor, for example, or just somebody really keep them on task, or, kind of show them a different way of being, thinking, and so on. But that's kind of the small part. And then 3 of the podcasts that I do, 2 that I host, 1 that I produce, are in and around speaking on addiction recovery trends, things that are going on. As it's not always on the national news, but we're in a fentanyl crisis, so a big part of that. And with my advocacy, we do hand out Narcan and also educate families and I do some speaking engagements here and there. But as far as the production side, I'm from the ground up: graphics, videos, audio, all of it, across the board, social media, everything. And so it's just kind of using those skills.
Wow, that's awesome.
Can I ask, you mentioned that you are involved in 5 podcasts. Can you just briefly, what are the topics of them?
Sure. So Knocking Doors Down, that's the one that I've been doing for over 5 years, really surrounds on people overcoming mental health struggles, addiction, physical challenges, you name it, and how they got to where they were. I mean, I've had everybody on from Charlie Sheen a couple of times, Kat Von D, some big names, but, now I've moved more towards people that maybe don't always get a voice, and wanting to do that. I'm getting a lot more joy out of that. And then the other one is Don't Hide the Scars. It's for the nonprofit I work at called Pain, Parents and Addicts in Need. And we really touch more on directly focusing on that audience of if you are a loved one of someone who is suffering or who did, trying to give them information on understanding what addiction is, how it works, what an addict is capable of, what you can expect early in recovery, a year or 2, 3, 4, 5 years even. And then the other one I do is actually a financial podcast. My best friend for a long time owns an investment firm called Plan Solutions, and we do a podcast. They write a biweekly newsletter, and so as the layman person, I ask the questions that I think people would want to know, and he breaks it down from a very, very, very well educated perspective. And then the other podcast that I produce is for a gentleman who owns an addiction recovery treatment. As a matter of fact, they call him the godfather of treatment. His name's Richard Tate. It's called We're Out of Time. And he has a lot of celebrities on, trying to reach a younger audience and educate there. And then I do help produce a lady that does a fitness podcast. I just produce her audio and her basic YouTube.
Cool.
All right.
Okay.
Can I ask a question as well?
Please.
Now, I'm just curious, did you grow up with addiction in your family?
I did, both sides.
Okay.
And moving on to like, how would your friends describe you if you're, they're talking about you, and what would they say, do you think?
Scott, I've never thought about that. You're putting me on the spot.
We get the deep questions on here. That's what I love, is like Astrology does ask some interesting questions that I wouldn't ask.
Sure. Well, you're the skeptic. Yeah. So
I love that you get answers to these questions, whether you believe in where the stars are or not.
Yeah. I would hope if anything they would say resilient and empathetic, a good sense of humor. I think of myself as an easy person, not just to get along, but to enjoy situations, or even in states of discourse to really kind of keep pretty calm and check my emotions and find rational resolutions. Hopefully a loving father. I know one of my best friends had me in tears the other day. I'm so proud of you. You're such a good dad. And he never became a dad. Oh, okay. Thank you. Other than that, I'm naturally an introvert, oddly, even though I do things that professionally are extroverted. So I think they might comment on that I'm normally mostly pretty chill and kind of calm. Don't get overly worked up on too much.
And you said that your friend had you in tears the other day. Are you somebody, is it easy for you to cry or feel sensitive?
If it touches my heart or breaks my heart. And being that he was talking about my kids, like you talk about my kids, I'm gonna, especially in a loving way, or there's a recent outing for my youngest and my oldest. This lady at the shop just complimented him over and over on his manners and how polite he was, and I was incredibly moved. It didn't necessarily move me to tears, but I was on the verge. And then of course, losing anyone you love, or in the field that I work in, and just knowing people in recovery. I know 4 people in the last 7 months that have lost their life to addiction. So that definitely was situations in which I cried. But tire goes flat or something, no, I'm not going to get too worked up.
Okay.
That kind of answers my next question on how you handle difficult emotions, but I don't know if there's anything else that would make you want to elaborate on.
Sure. No, that's a good question. I don't know. I don't know about you, but I'm when I was in my active alcoholism, I was very quick to react. And so that's a skill set I very much worked on. I've got to really process stuff. Sometimes maybe it's journaling, prayer, meditation. I love doing breath work and have gotten into yin yoga, things like that. So anything that'll kind of help me ground center myself. I do have a belief in God, a higher power, and really, just ask what I'm supposed to learn of a situation. But I do have my moments to anger. I'm not perfect. I live in an area in which the driving is pretty crazy. So sometimes I do lose my cool and language flies in traffic.
So traffic's the thing that sets you off. Pretty
that's,
cool.
That's the pet peeve, Scott. I'm telling you.
If you got angry with somebody that you loved, how would you be? How does that anger translate? How does it come out? Is it passive aggressive or is it direct or?
Is this a face-to-face situation, Sarah?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just with someone you're very close to and you got angry with them. Yeah. How would that anger come across, do you think?
Ooh.
Do you get snarky, that kind of thing?
We're going to reenact it right now and just see what happens.
Silent treatment.
Do you get snarky? You know what? I have been told on occasion I do. I try to catch that. I used to be not an aggressive yeller, but now I talk really soft when I'm angry and really direct. That's definitely a shift I haven't thought about in a while. It's, I don't know about any of you parenting, you're gonna have your buttons pushed. And there was a recent occurrence of just a very solid stare and a very even keel voice. And it was like, oh, he means business.
So not just with the kids, that would be kind of like to anybody that is that you're upset with, just to let them know you're serious.
Yeah, I don't really have too many situations of that in my life that I can think of. I know when it's something I'm passionate about, I definitely get fired up. I will for sure, I wouldn't say lose my cool, but you can tell that I'm passionate about it and I get very loud and direct about it and things of that nature. But that's rare.
Like if you're at a motocross and you said your favorite racer is who again?
Lewis Hamilton, Formula
Lewis
1.
Hamilton is about to win, and at the last minute somebody passes him. That's where you're going to feel that.
that's rage. That's when an SOB flies out of my mouth. Yes.
Well, let's go back to childhood and kind of. Can you describe what were you like as a kid? What was just kind of that experience like for you?
Let's see. As questioned, I did grow up in a home of addiction, and unfortunately, my father was also a sex addict, and he went through being sexually violated, and I did too at a very early age. So that's when I started to. I never really acted out per se, but. I think that's when I started to close in a little bit more, if I think back about it. And that's when things like sports or performance arts, I did acting. I have a terrible singing voice, so I stayed away from that pretty quickly. Really started to become a passion of mine. Movies early on were a big escape. Fantasy, that usually surrounded action and sci-fi were my thing and still are to this day. But I never had much discourse with people, and I think that's kind of I learned to people please really early on due to my home environment, and that carried through probably until the last 5 or 6 years.
Mm-hmm. And can you speak a little bit about maybe each parent, whatever you're comfortable with, just kind of maybe your relationship with them, or just kind of maybe what they did for work, things like that? Yeah,
my dad, very hardworking man, ended up living on his own by the time he was 14, married my mom at 17. My grandma had to sign the marriage certificate. He was a truck driver, owned a multi-million-dollar, by the time he sold it, trucking company. And, my memories of my dad, which were very close now, I think going through addiction as well helped me understand him all too well, and having some similar struggles, but a beautiful man. And, he will give you the shirt off his back, and he will share his story with anyone to help them. And it's a pretty gnarly story, but really beautiful that he does that. And my mom, my goodness, just the salt of the earth. She was like the den mom. She was the mom that on a Friday pick you up from school and going, "You want to go see a baseball game?" "Yeah, I do." "All right, good. We're going to Anaheim, which was a distance from where I grew up, a good 6-hour drive. And we're going to go to an Angels game, and then we're going to Disneyland." And, I still have a huge love of Disney. My mom always encouraged any of the things that sounded a little nutty, maybe coming from a kid, as far as, I want to make films. She even told me not that long ago that I told her when I was little, I want to be in something with Charlie Sheen, and to later, not a film, but for that to happen. And she was always, "Yes, you're going to do that. Absolutely." She's still such a beautiful person. And, yeah, that's another thing that will make me cry, because I adore my mom. She's just the best person I've ever met in my life.
That's a good endorsement. Best person award. On romantic partners, you mentioned you were divorced. I don't know, just if you could briefly just kind of describe that person, and if you're currently with anybody, describing, kind of maybe the type of person you're drawn to or what you look for in somebody.
Sure. Boy, we're getting deep. I haven't talked about this in a while. So in addition to the alcoholism, I've explored sex and love addiction, and it was more the love part, but the sex was in there too. And the best way I can put my marriage was, I could quit drinking for a period of time, but I couldn't quit them. It was just you can fill in all the volatility. I won't go into any of it. But when that came to an end and I started to explore my sobriety and recovery, what I found attractive changed as I changed myself. And my partner now, she is a beautifully spiritual person, a special education teacher, works with children on the autism spectrum, varying special abilities. And she's just the kindest, most gentle, loving person. And it's interesting to, because I'm into journaling, look back and go, wow, I've really changed what is attractive to me. She is beautiful on the outside, but just who she is and the light that shines out from within. And, I have to admit, I thought that loving another person was, boy, they look really nice on the eyes, and, all the googly eyes and the love bombing and all that stuff. So I was a very codependent person prior, and now the relationship is very interdependent, letting her know, hey, I'm going to do this awesome podcast, and describing it. She's just like, you go and you do an awesome job and have a good time with those people, and so yeah, very, very different, very different.
That's interesting, like the difference between codependency and interdependency, being a healthier relationship style.
Oh, yes.
That's something that you explored. And are there any telltale signs that listeners can look for to check themselves in their relationships?
My simplest saying, which I've actually trademarked, ironically, is no outside solutions to inside problems. If you're looking for a significant other to fix everything inside you that isn't working right or that you dislike about yourself, you're in the wrong place, because you're the wrong person. Nobody's going to do that for you but you. When it comes to your self-esteem, self-image. And yes, we want someone that is good for us. We don't want someone putting us down, berating us. But we also need to look out for the signs of codependency, love bombing, the I can't imagine my life without you, but even more extreme than that. Or, people will go to very dark places and say some dark things, and it kind of shackles someone to stay in a relationship, so to speak. Or if they try to hold things over you, or the belittling, there's just a whole series of them that we could do a whole podcast on, so I don't want to keep going. But there's a lot of telltale signs, and I think most of us know that when we look in the mirror.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything you can tell us about the person that you were married to?
For safety's sake, I would rather leave it where I did. That's okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, it just sounded like tumultuous or exciting and unpredictable, and that was attractive at the time, but no longer.
It was the polars. It was definitely it was beautiful when it was beautiful, and when it wasn't, it wasn't.
Can I ask you a question about what makes you feel safe? Like, what makes you feel the most comfortable? Would that emotionally, would that be being around people or time alone?
I would say, I'm going to say time alone if I'm choosing between the two. I do host some live events, and at the end, I'm drained. So I do not get energy from crowds most normally. So for me, I very much like to go stand on my lawn in my bare feet and just listen to the trees and the leaves and the birds, and
But moving on to a subject that I think, if you were going to spend time with some people, these would be some of your favorites on children. Can you just kind of, give us a sense of who your kids are and their personalities?
My oldest, he is brilliant and a wonderful person. Very, very switched on, very go-getter. He's in his mid-teens. He's already opened his own business, got his own business license, and he very much has a vision for what he wants to achieve. And I mean, even today we had a conversation. It was just so I get such pleasure out of it, such joy, like a lasting joy, just to hear how he's networking. I mean, some kids his age, it's like, oh, well, and not knocking on it because I was that kid, but I'm just worried about the movie I'm going to this weekend. And he's like, Dad, remember that author that I told you about? Yeah, I got in contact with him. We're going to have a Zoom meeting, and he's interested in the work I'm doing. And then my youngest, she's a character. She's a bit of a tomboy, really into football, NFL, big Niners fan. And very creative. Ever since she was little, I mean, I remember the house that I owned when they were little. She ended up painting on the walls, and instead of scolding, it was, you know what? This is your wall to create on, whatever you want to do. And she had handprints all over the walls, and she does just amazing artwork, be it hand drawing. She's into sewing. She does digital art. She's very talented musically. I mean, can just sing on key, learn piano, a lot of it by ear, just has a beautiful, wonderful gift for the arts.
Wow. I'm like, I mean, I'm sure that comes from good coaching and parenting.
I'll take some of the credit.
Take that credit.
I'll take a little bit. The manners, I'll take credit for. I'll take credit for that.
You mentioned that you host a podcast with your friend financially. So this next question you might have some extra insight on, but just money and debt is just like, what's your relationship with those two things? Do you feel like, save up for big ticket items or, easy come, easy go? What's your relationship to money?
We actually, it's funny, my partner Cassandra and I, we did a financial course, and we found out that I'm the free spirit and she's more the button down for the rainy days. But I've come more that direction. I was never overly a spender. I always seem to be able to do a lot with the little. But I do have my moments when it's time. Like I said, I'm a Disney fan. It's like, all right, we need to do something again. Well, we went to Disney earlier this year. It's our first time together, had a blast. We're going to go again. And it's like, I'm booking it. It wasn't even a question. It wasn't a discussion. It was, I'm booking it. We're going to go do this. So that's where my free spirit comes out. But otherwise, I invest pretty wisely. I save pretty wisely. But I'm not adverse to a big ticket item here and there. If it's something I think about for a while and I go, no, I really want that. The money is there, it's within the budget of what I've saved in my quote unquote play money, then I'm going to go get it. I'm not like, well, I could turn that $400 into something and buy another stock, or, it's like, nah, I need to have a little bit of fun here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I tend to put everything in the account, and then at some point, I'm going to use that. But no, you got to spend on fun stuff occasionally. Yeah. On health and self-care, any areas of health, you've got into a couple, that have been sort of, maybe this is more physical health, that have been sort of issues, and then self-care routines. You mentioned a couple already too, but if you want to just kind of cover that topic and how you feel about that.
I've become more aware of it, again, as my recovery gets longer and longer, and as we all grow a little bit older, the ailments kind of has started. And so, I've become more conscious of it. I would say that I still struggle to have a great healthy eating pattern. I still work on that. I was a binge drinker, and sometimes I binge eat. It doesn't mean that it's bad food when I do, but sometimes I'll wake up, it's a good cup of coffee, and then I'm like, oh my goodness, it's dinner time. I haven't eaten. I've been so busy. And then I'll eat, like 3 plates of food, and then I'm, ready to pass out from the carb load or something. So that's still an area I'm working on, but I have explored a lot more holistic health. Like I mentioned, yin yoga. I do practice breath work. It's been amazing for my anxiety that I didn't even really know I had until I got sober. Like, what is this thing that, I've had this forever. I've just never paid attention.
Is there a quick breath exercise that throughout the day you just find yourself doing, like how many breaths counts in or out, or what works for you?
My favorite one, and when I work with people, regardless if it's a sponsee or someone that hires me, is called box breathing. So it'll be 5 seconds in, hold, 5 seconds out, hold with empty lungs, then 5 seconds in. So you kind of form that box of equal sides. So that's one that I really like. And then there's a bunch of other techniques where you can actually go into hyperventilation and you learn the advantages to that. Or there's ones where your breath is slow out but quick in, and there's all kinds of different techniques. I haven't gotten way off, and like my brother, he's into Wim Hof, so he's into like the gnarly, I'm going to go outside in 20-degree weather with no shirt on and a rucksack, running in my shorts, and I haven't gotten that gnarly yet.
I tried the Wim Hof breathing for a little while. You're hyperventilating basically, and then you don't breathe for a minute or so, and then you go back to hyperventilating, and sure enough, you get a buzz from it.
Yeah,
because your body is getting so much oxygen, and then none, and then a bunch of oxygen.
Yeah, I had a friend who he's a certified breathwork coach, and he took me through that, and I was like, man, this is pretty gnarly. It's like I haven't felt a buzz in a while, but I'm feeling it now.
Let's see. How would you describe the last 12 months? If there was sort of a theme, in an area of life that you feel like really stands out over the last 12 months, is there, one area that was especially kind of prominent?
That's a good question, Scott.
Sarah wrote it, but thank you.
Oh, Sarah, good question.
Thank you.
And what a gentleman, given the credit.
She's like, these are the topics you need to cover for us to be able to tell the difference between charts. And if you can deviate a little bit, but stick to the script, Scott.
I would say prosperity. I have an amazing mentor. Gentleman, his name is Mike Diamond. As a matter of fact, if you watch this last season of A&E's Intervention, he's on there. It's just a brilliant guy, and so much admiration. There's a thing in the recovery rooms, we say, be around people that have what you want. We don't mean that nefariously, but their spirituality, their sense of self, their grace, their giving. And he challenged me, and he basically Mr. Miyagi'd me, was, I teach, you do. And it was not only these personal skills to better my life, but my skill sets, and really challenging me. And he's like, it's going to come to fruition. He's like, just trust me. And here I'm like, oh my God, is he just getting me to do free work for him or what? And sure as you know what, it was maybe 3 months down the road, another opportunity came. And, it aligns with what I believe to be my purpose. And the money is nice too. So I've really just felt a big sense of prosperity, and what my tribe is looking like is much different than it was 6-7 years ago. So,
and you just mentioned it aligns with your purpose. Is there kind of like if you were to describe your purpose and kind of condense that down? I know that's a big topic, but what would you say about that?
Be a service to others. I think we're in such a weird time. I don't know about you folks. I don't remember it being this way. And it could be as simple as holding the door open for someone that's got a bag full of groceries, or, in my case, when families reach out to us and need help, and that's just the opportunity that, again, my belief in God that was put before me, through all of my circumstances. So I'd say that just being good to people, being kind, it comes back to you. And then all of a sudden, I think you find you like yourself a lot more too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. My last question before I turn it over to the astrologers, if they have any follow-ups for stuff that we didn't really cover, but media recommendations. You mentioned you've been super into movies at times, but we have so many algorithms these days that advertise certain things to us. I love to get everybody out of their bubble and just find out what's in your bubble. What are the books, music, movies, shows that you would recommend to the audience?
Sure. Well, my first recommendation, if this is your first time listening, subscribe to this podcast, okay?
Oh, thank you.
So sweet.
Hit the subscribe button. Lately, it's been, as far as books, it's been a spectrum. I got off into a sci-fi kick, and I love Jules Verne. I have since I was a kid, so went back and did 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. And then I'm currently in a book, actually 2 books, one from a buddy of mine, TJ Woodward, who's done amazing work in the recovery community, called Conscious Recovery. And then I'm drawing a blank on the author, but it's called The Body Keeps a Score, and it really dives into trauma and how the human body, brain works so much different than animals. You see it like 4th of July. If you have dogs, the fireworks go off, they get skittish, but they shake it off. You'll see a horse shake it off, and how humans, we don't shake it off in the same way, and it really ties in with movement and, getting your body moving and your mind. And so that's kind of my spectrum of reading. Films, TV. I have been hooked on the Star Wars shows lately. I'm going back and watching them all for the second time. I am a Star Wars nut. In addition to liking the films, I also build Legos, and those are all either race cars or Star Wars stuff. Kind of one of those childhood things. Can't recall if we've watched anything else. And I dive into YouTube a lot. I just get curious on topics. Lately, I've been loving these people that make these Disneyland channels or theme park channels. I think that's still that kid in me that loves that. I can't think of anything else offhand. Podcast-wise, people are usually surprised about this. I don't listen to anything in the recovery community too often. I kind of get my fill of it, and I need my break from it because sometimes it can get really heavy. So it's usually Formula One or, like I said, I subscribe to this show, which people need to take my recommendation. I just something that gives me a bit of a relief from any of that serious heaviness of my normal day-to-day life.
Yeah. Astrologers, we got quite a bit to work with. Are there any areas that he didn't really touch on that you wanted to ask about?
Yeah, I have a few. Yeah, go ahead, Emily.
So I have 2 questions.
Okay.
The first one being, what would you say is your love language?
Okay.
And then the second one is, I'm curious if you would consider yourself secretive or private.
Love language, I would say acts of service. And I think my partner would too. That seems to be when she's the most reciprocate. No, she likes when I plan, but me, it's acts of service, just the kindness of, getting a text message. When are you going to be home? Oh my goodness, you've worked like a 12-hour day. I'm going to have dinner ready when you get home. Like that to me is like huge. Like, okay, I'll bring a bouquet of flowers. Like that's huge for me. Secretive. I used to be a blabbermouth. Now I will speak openly about quite a few things. I have no shame of my past, be it things that happened to me or my poor choices. But I do reserve certain things for privacy. There's certain areas that I won't openly discuss, that it's either between me and my partner or another individual. Especially if somebody confides in me, it's like I'm not going to go tell people that. I wouldn't want that done to me. So, but for the most part, I'm pretty open book, depending on what is asked.
Mm-hmm. So you can keep a secret.
I can keep a secret.
Okay.
And this is where we tell you a secret and then we find out if you can keep it. We listen to your podcasts, all of them, and we make sure you don't share our secret.
Well, that's out there. That's had millions of views and listens. So I can't help you there.
Oh, that's true. I would need to bleep it out. Sarah, what do you got?
I got a few questions. So, okay. Jason, do you have, or can you share maybe a flaw that you are trying to work on?
Flaw. Is this a superficial type of flaw?
Anything that comes to mind.
Okay, I got two. I am, can I mention my height and weight? Does that mess with the charts?
100% fine.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm about 6'2", 6'3", about 185, and I used to have really great abs. And so my candy and soda habits have really probably ruined that a little bit. So I get a little self-conscious there. And then I've had some issues with my teeth. And so I recently just went to the orthodontist to get those fixed. It bothers me, especially being on camera when there's a close-up of my bottom teeth. There's very bad crowding. And I'm like, oh, and people, wow, what a great message. I'm like, yeah, but did you see my teeth? It's so egotistical and sad, but also the orthodontist did say it is causing jaw issues and something where, we might have to yank those some days. Like, oh, I don't want dentures. No.
Okay. That's good. I mean, not good, but you know what I'm saying. Like, that's a good answer. Thank you. Have you ever had any issues with bones or knees or anything like that?
Yes, I have broken my nose twice, almost all of my toes. I have dislocated my jaw and separated my left shoulder.
Boy. Oh my God. Wow. Okay. That sounds painful. Hopefully not all at the same time.
Unfortunately, shoulder jaw was a car accident, sadly related to my alcoholism. Fortunately, didn't involve anyone else, just me. And my toes, I played sports. So basketball, baseball. Yeah, that's where my nose got broken too, in basketball, believe it or not. So it was all a result of being a very active kid and teenager.
Let me ask you, like, in your growing up, childhood, was in your home, did people often say, I love you to each other?
Wow, I've not thought about that. My mom, for sure, to my brother and I. My brother, he's older, so he was kind of, that didn't really start until we became adults that he ever said, I love you. Yeah, but I don't think it was out of malice or anything. I think he was just, my brother was kind of a punk. I don't know how else to put it.
Have you ever struggled to say that to people?
No,
Never been an issue. Okay.
no, not. I can't think of a single point in my life, childhood, all the way till now. Matter of fact, now I probably, maybe for some, overdo it.
Okay. Okay. Are you clean or messy?
I'm going to go messy out of those two choices.
Okay. So you're not like hyper, like about, ADD or not ADD, OCD or anything about your environment?
You know what? I did struggle with OCD in my teenage years, and then at some point it went kind of the opposite direction. Now I'm moving more back to center. I would call myself a minimalist. I like having very little stuff, but if I have it, I want it out so I see it, because if it's put away, I'm going to forget about it.
Okay. Do you have, speaking of like memory, how is your memory?
Childhood, very, very, very shoddy. And I actually I have gotten more recall during my sobriety. And some other times, very shoddy as well. And I could very much connect that to situations in which being in retrospect, fight, flight, or freeze modes, quite often.
How about just like mundane things like remembering appointments and things like that?
Pretty good.
Pretty good? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Technology helps though.
Okay. How was what was your experience like in March 2020 and kind of leading up to that COVID period? Specifically March or February-ish?
There was a big change there. I had a 20-year radio career at that point. And I got offered the opportunity, as I was speaking out more and more about addiction recovery, and advocacy. I got the opportunity to do my primary podcast, Knocking Doors Down, was presented to me, and it started in March of that year.
Wow. Okay. That's pretty big. Just a few more questions. What are your views on things like astrology?
I'm open-minded to it. I'm trying to remember if I've ever really had a reading. I know I had one, but I don't remember what she did. I don't remember it being anything with charts, but I've always found it fascinating. It's never been something that I've adhered to, that my life has a set pattern. But I also find that when I have been curious, like, oh, I'm going to see what my horoscope is, and go, oh, that's fascinating, huh? Or sometimes there are things where it's like, oh, yeah, okay, that did kind of come to fruition. Okay.
And let's see, you've answered these. I think that's okay. One more question. Has anyone accused you of being rebellious, or are you kind of someone that, no, sorry, you did say you were a people pleaser or had those tendencies?
Yeah, but I did have, I would say I'm not supposed to give a range. Yes, there was a point of rebellion, I would say for sure. I was very fascinated with the rock and roll lifestyle, so
that was more of a phase. That's not like something like part of your personality that you, like somebody asks you to do something and your initial reaction is to not want to do it.
I know. Maybe some apathy in there, Sarah, but no, and I don't. How do I put that? If I say yes, it's not out of people pleasing. Now.
Okay. And has anyone ever described you or told you that you were intimidating?
No, not that I recall. Most people say they're surprised I'm as friendly as I am. I recall that more than ever. I don't think I've ever been told I'm intimidating.
Okay.
My brother would tell me I was very much had a I'm going to butcher the word. I can't even say it right now. Enigmatic period. where he's just like, I don't know, people can't figure you out. You're kind of a weird dude, you know. You're all over the place.
Interesting. Okay. And are you someone that likes to play devil's advocate a lot?
No.
No. Okay.
No, that sounds really uncomfortable. Maybe in a debate situation, if we're talking about topics, because it's what I do for a living, I'll take the opposite stance. Like, hey, let's look at it from this perspective.
That's what I mean.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
Not in a religious standpoint at all.
No, I didn't even. I was like, I meant more like a, stirring the pot. I was thinking along that line. I was like, oh God, no, I hate this course.
But do you enjoy taking the opposing view just for the sake of having an interesting discussion about a topic?
I do.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Well, I asked all my questions, so thank you for going along.
No, this is fun. I'm enjoying you folks.
I actually have some follow-up to the follow-up.
Okay.
All right.
Go ahead. Go for it. Go for it.
We will allow. So I'm curious, are you somebody who is good with change? Like, does change come easy to you, or is it really a challenging process for you?
Oh, it depends. I definitely have a track record of hanging on to relationships and friendships too long. But when it comes to work environment or, having to shift hats or things like that, I really enjoy it. I like the challenge. It's one of the things I miss about sports, really, is, you can have a game plan, but then the game starts. So it depends on the area. That's a good question. I've never really thought of that.
So another question I have for you, would you say, do you feel as if there was responsibility that you had to take on at an early age?
Yes, very much so. Very much so. And not that we had a codependent relationship, but my dad was gone a lot, not only for his career, but when he was in his addiction, and really being there for my mom. In a lot of ways, I had to grow up real quick and take on more emotional responsibility, I would say, than actual like duties and physical responsibilities as well. My mom was ill with cancer when I was a kid. So that was very, 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 very tough. When it comes to, trauma can be overused, but that was a big T trauma for me.
And my last question for you is, what would you say that you struggle with more? Would it be if you had to choose between perfectionism or confidence?
Oh,
That's a good question.
that's tough.
I know. I love these. Astrology's great at asking interesting questions.
Oh my.
I'm gonna take that clip of you saying astrology is great.
Oh, no. At this point, you could just have AI Scott say anything you want.
Yeah.
You got to watch it, Scott. You're turning the premise on its ear here, my friend.
No, I obviously have to be a fan of astrology. Otherwise, why are you doing a podcast about it?
Right?
I don't have to believe in it to enjoy it.
Emily, say that again. Now I'm drawing a blank.
So,
Perfectionism or confidence? Which one's tougher?
I would say confidence.
All right. Well, the astrologers have got all this info. This is the part where we let them have their little huddle and they talk amongst themselves to compare and see if they're on the same page. I'm going to put you in the waiting room. It's about 5 or so minutes. Take a break.
Perfect.
And then we'll bring you back in and we'll see if they picked the right chart.
All right. I'm looking forward to it. I'm interested.
All right. Good, good. Hopefully the audience is too. All right. We'll see you in a bit.
All right.
Okay, astrologers. Now you get to hash it out, and I'm going to leave you to it, and then I'll check back in about 5 minutes.
Awesome. Right. Okay. All right, Emily. How are you feeling? Are you feeling like you're leaning definitely more one way than the other?
So Yes, I am. I am torn on a few things though. I am leaning towards the Scorpio rising.
Okay.
I have a feeling it's different than what you're leaning towards.
I'm definitely leaning towards the Cap rising Libra, but listen, I got the last two episodes wrong. So I'm totally open. Like, tell me like how you got there.
Okay, so Scorpio rising, the addiction with drugs and alcohol and with sex. Hearing that his parents, he grew up around addiction. He's got Neptune in the second house. That makes me feel like that was an energy. Also looking at Pisces South Node and those coming into this world with those those addictive qualities already. One of the biggest pings for me when somebody asked about purpose, and he said to be in service. And so I see that North Node in Virgo, and in Placidus, it's 11th house. And so and when love language also being of service, and I see that North Node conjunct Venus in Virgo. And then just that whole being in service to the community, helping, pouring back in. I see this 11th, house stellium and Placidus that he had. That makes me really think that community being being in service to his community.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, definitely. And he definitely, I would say, kind of has the coloring of a Scorpio rising, kind of like he has very dark hair. But it wasn't getting like the normal intimidation that you get from Scorpio risings. Whereas our Capricorn rising, sometimes they have like goatees, which I thought he kind of did have a little bit of that. But the Capricorn rising having the moon in the first house, that's such an interesting counterintuitive energy. It's like Cap risings are usually kind of like a little bit more stoic, and but the moon there kind of makes it a little bit more warm. Mm-hmm. and kind of a caretaker of people. The most striking thing to me in the Libra chart is the Pluto on North Node within a degree. And to me, that is somebody who is here to do Pluto things. Yeah. And that really resonated with me with like the sex addiction, but now also working with people in addiction in so many different ways in the sign of Libra. He also just was so kind. Like, no offense to Leo Scorpio people, but like, he had so much like kindness and diplomacy about him and the people pleasing things. And also the responsibility that he took on at an early age, not just responsibility, but like emotional responsibility. Yeah. And he said he looks for like rational resolutions. Honestly, that could be either Virgo or Cap moon. But yeah, I guess, this does happen sometimes where we get like a Scorpio rising versus North Node Pluto energy. It's like, okay, I'm definitely seeing some scorpionic themes.
And that's the thing, because of all of that Pluto that's so prominent. I could really honestly make a case for both. North Node seeking balance conjunct Pluto. That's the one that trips me up the most. Because it makes so much sense. I feel like
the other thing I asked him about COVID because I knew that all of, COVID, March 2020, we had like a cluster of major planets in Capricorn. And so I was thinking, okay, if he's a Capricorn rising, most likely that would be like a huge shift in his life at that moment. And he talked about getting like a new career or new job, or being a very like it just happened to start in March 2020, unrelated to COVID. So I guess that's why I'm leaning that way. But I always think everybody should vote for the one that you just feel makes sense to you. Yeah.
Yeah, I honestly really am. I really am torn. Because the eating stuff with Jupiter. Well, see, we're looking at two different charts too. So we're seeing like different.
Yeah. So what were you noticing with Jupiter?
Well, in Placidus, he's got Jupiter in the 6th, and like he said something about binge eating, and that kind of made me think like.
And that Jupiter is you're talking about the Libra chart.
Yes, sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that Jupiter is in a T-square with Venus and the moon, which to me definitely sounds like binge eating and overdoing it.
Yeah.
And the South Node in Aries can be someone who came from a lot of like primal impulsive desires.
Yeah.
Sports, sex, drinking, just a lot of that kind of, the South Node can be kind of our, I forget how it's described, but kind of like our comfort zone, but our kind of an instinctual energy or just reactive in the moment.
Right. Yeah, it really is a challenge. But
don't let me sway you, because if I'm wrong, I would feel so bad.
No, I think that, I agree with every case that you have made. Because that T-square is there, and the thing that messes me up the most is that for the Leo house, there's nothing in that 8th house. And I would expect to see more of that transformational energy in the 8th house.
Yeah.
But then the case for that could be the Scorpio rising and that first house energy being the transformation to his identity. Like,
mm-hmm.
He shows up in the world.
Yeah. You made me think of something else I was going to mention. The service thing, the acts of service, the being someone in kind of like a service helper, kind of like the Virgo energy that was coming across.
Right.
The way that I was seeing that in the Libra chart was the 6th house, the whole sign 6th house being Gemini, mm-hmm. and the ruler Mercury being conjunct the sun in the 10th house. Mm-hmm. That's how I was like, as Scott would say, making it fit.
That's what I love to hear. So if we had to choose as we wind down, have we got our charts picked out?
We're going to take a commercial. Oh, wait, no, we're not. We're going to take a commercial break after we.
Well, after you guys have your picks made, have you figured out which ones you want to do?
I have.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we're locked in?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Are you guys on the same page or different?
I think different.
Yeah,
different pages. Okay.
Yeah, which is
exciting.
Totally fine. Yeah.
That makes for a fun debrief, because then we'd sort of like talk about what both of you guys were seeing. All right, everybody. So hopefully at home you've made your picks too, and we'll be right back. We'll bring back the guest, and Jason will let us know which one is right after this.
Hey, Astro Detective listeners, this is your resident astrologer, Sarah Hartshorn, and I wanted to let you know about my coaching practice called My Cosmic Coach, where I offer natal astrology readings, human design readings, and a whole lot more. And right now, for fans of the Astro Detectives podcast, I'm offering $25 off my signature one-on-one coaching session. This is a holistic approach I developed that will guide you through any kind of decision you're trying to make or challenge you're navigating, where we're going to consult both your human design and astrology charts and even pull a few cards too. And you'll walk away with really clear, really practical, and actionable advice that is aligned and specific just to you. So head on over to mycosmiccoach.com and use promo code AstroDetectives at checkout when you book a one-on-one coaching session with me. That's mycosmiccoach.com.
Welcome back, everybody. We are joined again with Jason after a heated debate. I don't know.
It was not
pretty
heated.
cordial
Don't be divisive.
debate of just comparing notes on the interview and all of the information that Jason shared. And it sounds like Emily and Sarah are on two different pages. Is that true?
Yeah, but like I said, I am not. I'm always nervous because I got the last two wrong. So, and I felt so certain, So I might be about to learn a third lesson here.
Well, somebody is. We just don't know who. All right. This is the favorite part of the show where, Sarah, do the honors. Let's find out which chart belongs to Jason.
Oh gosh, this. I always say this and it makes my stomach sour. I hate this.
And just so we know,
I hate
Jason,
that for you.
But this is one of those times. It's like a roller coaster. You go through it and you're really tense, and then afterwards you feel so relieved, and you're like,
Not
"Oh,
always.
that was amazing."
Sometimes I'm like, "F that roller coaster." I'm never getting.
Right. You made me get in line.
And Jason, you know your sun sign, correct? When people say you are a blank. All right.
Yes.
All right. Sarah, do the honors.
All right, Jason. Just so you know, we had a choice between a Leo and a Libra. Jason, are you a Libra?
No.
Kicked in the ass again.
I mean, I got a lot of inappropriate jokes for that. I'm going to let go.
But you know what? Emily knew you were a Leo, so there you go.
That's right. You knew when there's a split decision, at least somebody's going to get it right.
Yeah.
I'm curious,
that's
why
true.
did you say Libra? What made you say that?
Well, actually, I don't know, Jason, if you're able to stick around, we do a little post show after this, and we get into the decision making, and we kind of hash out like, what did they miss? What did they get wrong? What did they get right? But before we close this one out, Jason, can you remind us what people can listen to, where they can find you? Where would you direct people who want to get more Jason in their lives?
Easiest way, the podcast is Knocking Doors Down. That's doors with a Z. Same handle on Instagram. That's a great way to get a hold of me. If you are struggling or you just want to say what's up, I respond to the direct messages that are appropriate. So please don't hesitate to reach out. And the website kddpodcast.com has all the information as well. So.
All right. And Emily, please let people know where they can get a reading from you.
So you can find me on Instagram at Rebel Venus Astrology. I'm also on TikTok and Threads. I can say my website, but there's periods involved, so I don't want to. Well, if you go to my Instagram, you can find all of the information in my bio at Rebel Venus Astrology.
I mean, you're allowed to use periods in the plug at the end if you want to.
Well, so I'm not spelling it out.
Okay.
Best way to find me is through Instagram.
We'll put a link in the show notes to everybody here.
Excellent.
All right. Well, that's it, everyone. Let us know what you thought by commenting on whatever platform you follow us on. Links to our accounts are in the show notes. If you like the show and want to support it, you can visit patreon.com/AstroDetectives. Don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform so you don't miss the next episode. Rate and review and tell your friends. This conversation continues on the Patreon-only debrief. And until next time, this case is closed.